Today's passage is Genesis chapter 31 verses 25 to 35. Let's read it together. Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You've deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing. I have the power to harm you, but last night the God of your father said to me, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household. But why did you steal my gods?" Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid, because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent but found nothing. Rachel said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my period." So he searched but could not find the household gods. Amen. I will be sharing a message titled, God's Protection, the Secret to Boldness. Jacob took his family and all his possessions and began his journey back to his homeland. In this journey, Rachel became a stumbling block. This is because Rachel took something she didn't need to take, and in fact, something she shouldn't have taken. Rachel's theft of her father Laban's household gods turned a legitimate journey into an act of theft and escape. Jacob's group had women and children who were vulnerable to long journeys, and they also had many livestock, so they were caught by Laban, who pursued them and caught up with them 10 days after their departure. Laban learned that Jacob had left 3 days after Jacob departed, and he began his pursuit, reaching Jacob's party within a week. Laban, having caught up, confronted Jacob with two issues. One was about the procedure. It was about why he did this in such a manner, and the other was about missing items. "Someone took what was mine," he said. First, regarding the procedure, he pointed out that Jacob left without telling him. Let's read Genesis 31, 27, 28 together. "Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of timbrels and harps? You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You have done a foolish thing." Laban rebuked Jacob, saying that because Jacob fled as if escaping, he did not have time to say goodbye, to my daughters and my grandchildren. He ignored the time for farewells, the procedure of farewell. He said that if Jacob had officially told him, "I am returning," he would have held a feast, and they would have had a time of blessing together. The other point Laban brought up was about missing items. Let's read Genesis 31, 30 together. "Now you have gone off because you long to return to your father's household, but why did you steal my gods?" Laban says, "It is right that you long to return to your father's house," but then asks, "How could you steal my gods?" He is referring to the teraphim that Rachel stole. Rachel's unnecessary action made Jacob's legitimate journey appear as an escape after a theft. After hearing Laban's words, who was pressing charges based on two reasons, the farewell procedure and the missing items, Jacob now replies. Let's read Genesis 31, 31, 32 together. Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. First, regarding the procedure of farewell, Jacob confesses, "I was afraid." He confessed that he thought Laban would forcefully take his wives away from him. This thought was not entirely baseless. This is because the relationship between Laban and Jacob at that time had severely deteriorated, and it was not impossible that Laban would actually do so. And Jacob firmly states, "I did not steal Laban's gods, and if anyone among the group did such a thing, that person shall die." This is because Jacob did not know that Rachel had done it. Today we will focus our meditation on this part, on Jacob's words. First, Jacob's boldness. This is an attitude we need to emulate. Boldness is a state of mind one can have when there is nothing to be ashamed of. If one has committed a sin or done something improper, one cannot be so bold and will inevitably shrink back. Jacob did not commit theft. To be precise, he did not know that Rachel had stolen. Although he competed with his uncle Laban, he did not take any extra sheep beyond what was promised, nor did he touch any unpromised animals. As we examined last Sunday, the agreement they made was a very unfavorable one. It was an agreement made under very unfavorable terms. He did not choose the side that could gain more, but the side that could only gain less. These terms were so unfavorable to Jacob that Laban agreed without any hesitation. Anyway, it was property legitimately acquired through such an agreement. He did not take anything that was not rightfully his. That is why Jacob could be so bold before his uncle. God's people should be able to live with such boldness. Even if a promise involves a potential loss, there must be faithfulness in keeping that promise, and we must never covet the possessions of others. All these things are possible because of faith in God. Without faith, one cannot do this. Being able to keep a promise, even if it means incurring a loss, is possible because of the faith that God will never let us suffer loss. God will never let us return empty-handed. It is because we have the faith that God will provide, God will fill, that we can actively and proactively incur loss. Similarly, the reason we should not covet others' possessions is the same. Trying to fill oneself with covetousness arises from a lack of trust in God, thinking that God may not fill, God may not provide. God's people do not covet the possessions of others because they believe that God will provide. There is no need to acquire possessions in such a way. Our needs are always abundantly met by God in His own time. Surprisingly, Jacob had this side to him. He was bold and had no qualms in the face of Laban's accusations. I bless you in the name of the Lord to live a bold and unashamed life, even before those who try to accuse us and find fault with us. However, Jacob's words do not contain only positive aspects. The last part of verse 32 is recorded as, "Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods." The reason Jacob could be bold was that he lived without qualms. However, on the other hand, it was also because he was ignorant. Boldness stemming from righteousness is good, but boldness arising from ignorance is by no means good. This is because there is a world of difference between there actually being no problem and merely my not being aware of the problem. This is precisely the difference between ontology and epistemology that I sometimes talk about. In fact, Jacob's party actually had a problem that Laban could be angry about. There was a person who had stolen. This is in the realm of ontology. There was indeed a person who had stolen. But Jacob simply did not know this fact. This is in the realm of epistemology, because it is a matter of knowing or not knowing. This kind of boldness is extremely dangerous, because when the truth is revealed, when the truth comes to light, that boldness can no longer be maintained. Fortunately, Laban did not find the gods that had been stolen from him, so Jacob's boldness could be maintained. Although this incident might outwardly appear as Rachel's deception, it is undoubtedly an act that God took care of. Our boldness does not come from our actual selves, that is, from our own ontology. This is because we are sinners, full of all kinds of sins. Our boldness is a boldness that comes because God has made us bold. Although we are not actually bold, it is a boldness that comes because God has made us bold, because God has acknowledged us as bold. Theft is clearly a bad thing, but God decided in today's passage to tell Laban, be careful not to say anything, either good or bad. He told Laban, do not speak either good or bad. And God also decided not to speak about good and evil. He is not judging this matter as good or evil at this moment. Dear saints, today we have seen two different kinds of boldness. First, the boldness of having no sin or qualms of conscience is something we must emulate. I bless you in the name of the Lord to live with such boldness today. We must be bold without resorting to illicit means or deception, and without handling matters in the way of the world. We must be bold because God supplies all our needs. However, we must be careful of boldness that comes from ignorance. This is because a situation can arise where we feel embarrassed when the facts are confirmed. Thus, boldness can turn into its opposite, cowardice. But God protects our ignorant boldness. God takes care of us. Although we are not inherently bold beings, God acknowledges us as bold. Before the dark forces that accuse us, God covers us with the precious blood of Christ and with the grace of Christ, making us bold. So that the children of God do not live in cowardice, God will maintain our boldness without judging good or evil. I bless you in the name of the Lord that today will be a day lived in such grace. I bless you in the name of the Lord to live today upholding this boldness as children of God. I bless all of us, dear brothers and sisters, to live a victorious life today with the boldness enjoyed through faith in God. the boldness enjoyed by grace because God takes care of us. A boldness that is not intimidated by anyone, nor shrinks back in any situation or circumstance, but is enjoyed as children of God.